The March 9th, 2015 Intergovernmental Agency meeting is hereby called to order. Are there any agenda modifications, Mr. Tedder?
No, sir, we have none.
The chairman's report.
We have Mr. Kent Wimmer.
Good evening, or good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Hi, I'm Kent Wimmer. I am the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee for Blueprint 2000. I am pleased to be serving as the chair this year, and I am happy to report on the progress we've made at our last two meetings, December the 11th and February the 5th. As requested by IA, the CAC held the first public meeting for the first public hearing for the Magnolia Drive sidewalk project on Thursday, December the 11th, 2014 at the Meridian Point building in Cascades Park, in beautiful Cascades Park, I might add. Four members of the public, including the Homeowners Association's president for the Indian Head and Lehigh neighborhood, spoke in favor of the project. The CAC discussed the project as well, and we unanimously approved pre-funding the Magnolia Drive sidewalk project in the amount of $6,150,000 with the expectation that this project funding would be reimbursed from the 2020 sales tax extension. Specific comments you should be aware of that were made at the hearing included because projects such as sensitive lands, protection projects remain uncompleted from the original Blueprint 2000 list. We recommend that the funding that's being allocated please be reimbursed in the next run of funding the 2020,000 sales tax. Second point is lighting should be made sufficient for the safety of pedestrians, and other pedestrian crossings should also be considered in the plan because currently there's large gaps in abilities for citizens to cross. And then also consider using a safety strip between the curb and the sidewalk to give pedestrians a little safer, a little better peace of mind as with the high, fast-moving traffic that's going along Magnolia Drive. And then lastly, the neighbors wish to have opportunities to comment on the design elements of the sidewalk as it progresses. Other information, other items I'd like to bring for your information, the Blueprint 2000 staff has graciously offered to host a tour for the CAC members on April 9th from 2 to 5. You're all welcome to come with us and actually see on the ground what you're going to see beautiful pictures of today. The CAC remains supportive of the proposed bridge and trail connections across Monroe Street, and we encourage the IA to move forward with the project. The CAC is also supportive of the city developing a digital wayfinding system to aid park users in Cascades Park, particularly those with visual impairments, which includes locations of accessible parking and entrances and descriptions of the park's wonderful events, amenities, and infrastructure. And finally, the Buck Lake Alliance is considering approaching the IA with a proposal concerning protecting the forested uplands along Upper Lake Lafayette and the Falls Chase development. So those are the items that I had to report and would be happy to take any questions or...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the report. Are the questions of the chairman? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Give our best regards to the committee for a job well done. Okay, we're on information items. Are there any questions or concerns on item 1 through 3?
Move consent.
That's not consent. Hearing none, we'll move to consent.
Move consent.
Commissioner Dozier moves consent, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. We're on presentations and discussion. Capital Cascades Trails Stormwater Master Plan update. Mr. Hargraves.
Mr. Chairman, Gary Phillips with Blueprint staff is going to provide that update to the board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've got some objectives for you here. Status of area projects. Update on the FAMU Way, Capitol Cascade Trail Segment 3B and 3C construction, the FAMU Way Phase 2 and 3, and the Capitol Cascades Trail Segment 3D. I know there's a lot of Ds and 2s and 3s. I'll try to keep it straight. And then the next steps. First, this is a map that shows you the watershed areas in Tallahassee relevant to the projects, and in particular the 2020 sales tax projects. And you see there, the watershed areas are literally thousands of acres, and it's the St. Augustine branch and also the central drainage ditch, northern and southern watersheds. And so the 2020 sales projects, for example, Orange Avenue, Lake Bradford Road, FAMU Way, and the Capitol Cascade Trail are all located in these watershed areas. In the past, Blueprint utilized two different stormwater models, an XP SWIM model and an ICPR model for the central drainage ditch. What we've done recently is we are consolidating those models into one master plan stormwater model, and we will use that stormwater model when it's complete to analyze the remaining segments of the Capitol Cascade Trail, Segment 3D and Segment 4. Drilling down a little bit further, for example, the Airport Gateway located on Lake Bradford Road from Gaines Street to Stuckey is one of the sales tax projects. And we want to be sure that as we move forward with the 3D segment, Capitol Cascade Trail, Segment 3D project and Segment 4, that we don't limit ourselves hydraulically or otherwise, and make sure we're consistent with these projects that are in the future. A couple of the projects that are funded by the city, again in the same proximity, if you will, you see Lake Alberta in the water there, the FSU football stadium on the very northern part of the screen, the Madison Gaines Street outfall, which will be collecting additional stormwater and put it into Lake Alberta. And then there's also what we're calling the lower central drainage ditch project, Phase 1 and Phase 2. That yellow divider is Kissimmee Street. That portion from there down to Spring Hill Road, the idea there is basically to protect the slopes from erosion, and the city has Gabion design concepts to make the bottom of the ditch larger and also to protect the erosion. And then the portion north of there is basically on hold until we have further information vetted out for the Segment D alignment and also for the FAMU Way Phase 2 and Phase 3. Going back a little bit, so Capitol Cascades Trail, you're all very familiar with that in the segments 1 through 4. Traditionally, stormwater projects start downstream and work their way upstream, so we would have started in Segment 4. However, due to funding and other reasons, we did Cascades Park first, then went ahead and did Franklin Boulevard with money from U.S. HUD, and are now under construction for Segment 3. So once again, I just want to reference the fact that we want to use this consolidated model to look at Segment 3D and 4 in terms of potential redevelopment and retrofit ponds. This is a really nice graphic. This shows the pre-project 100-year floodplain in the same general area, and you see by FSU's football stadium along Lake Jackson, Lake Bradford, thank you. There's a lot of floodplain area in there, and also along the St. Augustine branch as you work to the east between Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Bruneau, and then also on South Monroe Street, a large amount of floodplain that is impacting businesses and neighborhoods and residents, and then up Cascades Park all the way up to Leon High School along Franklin Boulevard. After the Cascades Trail projects, this is what you have in the red. So the blue was replaced by the red in the 100-year floodplain. And what this shows is that Franklin Boulevard put the floodplain water inside the box culvert. So there is no floodplain along Franklin Boulevard anymore except contained within the box culverts. Cascades Park is designed to flood. It is a stormwater facility, so that's why you see the red there. Monroe Street has a small portion still there, but that's more of a conveyance, and it also does not flood the commercial buildings along South Monroe Street. And then the rest, as you move to the west, are the ponds that we're constructing as part of the improvements. So the idea is, as we move to segment 3D and 4, if there's opportunities to reduce the floodplain in blue, that's what we would like to look into and use the consolidated model to analyze those options. This shows the Capital Cascades Trail Segment 4 concept back from 2005. It's, of course, 10 years old. This project was designed with inline ponds, or the concept was inline ponds along the central drainage ditch. And you see on to the right there, there's the Bond Community Ponds and some other stormwater ponds. Things have changed dramatically since 2005. And so, again, even though we didn't design and construct these things in the order, so to speak, normally done, we still have an opportunity to go back in Capital Cascade Trail Segment 3D and Segment 4 and look at opportunities for both water quality improvements and floodplain mitigation. This is the Capital Cascade Trail Segment 3B and 3C, which coincides with FAMU Way Phase 1A and Phase 1B. The FAMU Way project, the roadway, the drainage, the utilities, was designed by Public Works. The Cascade Trail project, replacing the open ditch with box culverts, Van Buren Pond, the amenities, the sidewalk, landscape, etc. And those designs were put together into one construction letting project, which is under construction now. MINC is doing all this work. And it is designed to be open in phases. The first phase, Phase 1A, from the eastern starting point of the project, if you will, to Wanish Way will be complete this October. Phase 1B will be complete, the new alignment portion will be completed in August of next year. And of course, the trail and the box culvert and all the amenities are coming along at the same time as these improvements are shown here. And then the missing gap, which is on your agenda later today, connection is the Capital Connector Bridge, proposed to go to construction this year and then finish next year. These are aerials taken of the FAMU Way Capital Cascade Trail, Segment B and C. Looking to the west, you see the Van Buren Pond. The walls are in place. The box culverts are underground. The roadway utility work is coming together, the sewer and water. The roundabouts are in place. The sidewalk on the south is there. The multi-use trail is there on the north. The landscape and irrigation is going in as we speak. It's moving along at a very, very good pace. And as I said, this will be complete October of 2015. Not that far away from right now. Moving on to the Phase 1B FAMU Way area. This is the new alignment section that fronts the Railroad Square development to the north. This is slated to be complete by August 2016. And if you can envision the two-lane road continuing with a median, you've got the back-end parking on the Railroad Square side. You have amenities. You have about a 90-foot swath between the roadway, curb, and Railroad Square. So a nice section there's an outdoor market pavilion area, there's a kids playground area, there's potential for, in the future, for bocce ball, I believe, yes. And there's also a fitness circuit. Okay, so this next segment, Segment 3D of Capital Cascade Trail, overlaps with Phase 2 of FAMU Way, and it goes from Coal Street Pond all the way to Lake Bradford Road. This portion of the city's project goes from where they stop in Phase 1B to Gamble Street. And that would begin right after the Phase 1B is complete, or August of 2016. Subject to change depending on what happens with the 3D improvements at the Capital Cascade Trail. So as I said, there is an overlap. We want to make sure that we consider the sales tax projects using that consolidated stormwater model, and there is potential impacts to that construction schedule. So what is the 3D options that we've got? We have really two with some variations within those two. So we would start at the outfall of Coal Street Pond, and there's a southern option and a northern option. Here we go. The northern option, I'm going to go over that first. So that follows the existing channel, and there is a new jack and bore underneath the railroad tracks. So we'd have actually two hydraulic crossings of the railroad. We have a stilling pond area, and then we want to make improvements in the existing ditch from that stilling pond to the central drainage ditch, just south of Lake Alberta. And that would either be like ditch armoring type thing, or actually putting in a box culvert, either one. And then the other option is to stay to the south and basically follow the roadway alignment, FAMU Way roadway alignment, both in Phase 2 and then a portion of Phase 3 to the central drainage ditch. Also in a box culvert, continuing the 10 by 9, 12 by 9 box culverts underground. Looking at a couple of aerials from a drone that we took. From a hydraulic perspective, this is a potential problem. This is the looking south. So you've got Lake Alberta on the left. You've got the central drainage ditch right below you. You've got the sewer treatment facility back on the right side there. And then you've got a railroad bridge. You've got the Gamble Street Bridge. And you have two utility aerial crossings. And these are affecting or exacerbating the floodplain improvements proposed up along Lake Bradford. So that's something that we need to take a close look at hydraulically and using the model. This is the area by Stern Street and Eugenia, crossing the railroad track. And it gives you a little idea of the depth of maybe of the ditch and how close the ditch is to the CSX railroad track. Now this is looking in the other direction, basically just turning around looking south. Lake Alberta is on the right side, and you can see all the trees that are lined along where the existing ditch is located. And another shot of the tree-lined ditch literally inside the CSX right-of-way in some of these areas here. So CSX would be a big player in the design moving forward for that northern option. Okay, looking at the FAMU Way Phase 3 section, which is the piece from Gamble to Lake Bradford, that would come after the Phase 2. And one of the options would be to follow the existing alignment of the road, which allows for ponds to be constructed just to the south of it. But one of the problems with that is the idea of making this roadway, beautifying this roadway into a gateway. It'd be very difficult. Looking at this picture here, you can see this is looking north, so the sewer facility is on to the right here, and the railroad bridge is straight ahead, and it's be a big challenge to beautify this section of the road. So another option that city staff are looking into would be to realign the road to the south and curve into the existing connection at Lake Bradford, providing a more befitting gateway to the FAMU Way. That also opens up potential for additional stormwater ponds for several different reasons or uses. One use of these ponds could be for redevelopment in that yellow area there, yellow gold area, and even the area between where it says FAMU Way may also be accommodated through these ponds through redevelopment and retrofit. Another use perhaps could be reducing the floodplain and basically moving that storage volume down into the new created ponds. And lastly, we want to reference the fact that we do have a stormwater working group, interdepartmental with city and county stormwater staff, that we are coordinating with while we develop the model and then when we analyze the options using the model. So the next steps, The working group will continue to meet as needed. Blueprint has presented to the TCC and the LRTI this PowerPoint right here we just showing you. The consolidated model should be ready to use in a couple of weeks. We need to get reviews done by city and county staff. But essentially, once that's done, then we will move as quickly as possible to making a decision on the segment 3D alignment, noting that it may impact the schedule for the FAMU Way Phase 2 project.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on that presentation? Commissioner Miller? Let's get the motion on the table. We got a motion by Commissioner Daly, second by Commissioner Dozier. Discussion on the motion. Commissioner Miller.
A couple of questions. Now, I just wanted to clarify with staff. My understanding is that if it looks like to me, just from what you've shown us and then the discussions we've had previously, that the northern route, you'd really have to take out that buffer altogether, and what you'd have is an open, untreated area. So that's one impact. And that the other one that I hear you today saying is that the ability to beautify FAMU Way is going to be much, much greater with a lot more opportunity on the south side. Is that correct? I mean, I realize those aren't stormwater considerations per se, but it seems like that the public benefit in aesthetic ways, in the use of the pond, and, you know, if it's on the CSX right away, it doesn't seem like that anybody's going to be able to publicly use it at all.
Gary, go back to the aerials. To the ones that shows the treat areas. So this is one of those views that if the option is to go on the north side of the railroad track, that's in between the railroad track and Lake Alberta, for stormwater conveyance, that bank system would need to be stabilized or put in a box culvert. So essentially what's going to happen is all of those trees along that area will be removed. If we shift to the south side, it will basically make this area meaningless for stormwater purposes. In other words, it could be filled in maybe, treed and things like that. So we're evaluating the options with both of those. It may be that if you go to the south, it may be a lot more costly, so we need to consider cost versus aesthetics. But at the end of the day, we are promising that we'll continue the aesthetics that we have taken all the way through FAMU Way at this point and make sure what is visible to the traveling public is going to be a very aesthetic gateway to FAMU University.
Okay, thank you. That's my big concern. It seems like the public use and the visual aesthetics of it all is just really leaning toward the south. My other issue is the back-end parking. It seems like to me, I mean, I am not a fan of back-end parking, and I don't think that the public has been enthusiastic in embracing it, and I think we have a lot of it as it is. So I would like to revisit the option of using it on FAMU Way.
We'll convey that to the City Public Works Director.
I agree, by the way. Okay,
yes.
I got Commissioner Dozier, then Lindley, then Gillum, Mayor Gillum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Phil, thank you for the presentation. This is exciting, and I think the only comment I wanted to make is I know that we have had a lot of discussion in the past, and I think this has run more through the City Commission with the FAMU Way alignment regarding the neighbors in this area. We want to be sensitive to that. But this is the game changer for the area. Nice job with the Cascades Park article this weekend, and I think it was, you know, very telling that we hit a huge storm and we saw the effects of it in Cascades Park but nowhere else. And if we don't think about this in a combined way, combining these different issues long-term, the Blueprint 2020 projects, whatever it might be, I think that would be kind of silly because we've had a lot of success with this. So I don't anticipate that you're looking, I mean, you still have more analysis to do, but I, for one, would be very interested in seeing how we can accomplish more relief in a wider area, fitted in with future Blueprint projects, even if that means the road is realigned. I know that's a city issue, but also it seems like we may have more options if we kind of move in that alignment and move on the north side. But I'm happy with where we are right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lindley.
Oh, thank you for the presentation. I just wondered if there was any sense of how much further that south alignment would be than the going through the current system. I mean, is that going to be vastly more expensive, or do you have any kind of sense of that at all?
That's all part of what we're going to evaluate. First of all, we'll make sure that hydraulically, if it goes on the north side or the south side, and our preliminary studies show that it doesn't make a difference whether you go on the north side or the south side, but at where it discharges into that conveyance system and how it may back up water into other areas are things that we're all looking at. Right. And until we have this consolidated model complete, that we can start plugging in a stormwater management facility in one place and see what it does for treatment capacity and flood reduction, we'll just have a tool that we can start plugging in all kinds of alternatives to see how we can best address the current project at hand, as well as make sure that we don't do anything detrimental to the projects in 2020 once they come online.
Sounds like it solves a lot of problems.
You know, one of the, I guess, criticisms was starting this master plan late in the process, but one of the benefits, as it turns out, is now we have the ability to go back and see the effects on the 2020 sales tax project. So I think timing was just beautiful on this, and it gives us a huge opportunity to make sure we accomplish multiple objectives with this one project.
And for the record, I like the backward parking. It's easier than parallel parking.
Well, calculus is easier than parallel parking.
You have a car that size.
Right. True. Mayor Gillum.
Excuse me. Quick, thank you, Mr. Chair. You had mentioned the time delay impacts. I guess it's on 2D. I'm not real sure which segment you were referring to, but could you say a little bit more about that? And also, if you could tell me how many homes are impacted by the two options.
That was my question.
Whether there are significant differences, but if you could get to that, and then I've got a third question. But
this blue segment and everything to the west of the blue segment, right now we can't give you a specific time frame because we need to look at the stormwater solutions for that area. Once we have the solutions identified, then the City Public Works Department can go ahead and start programming a time frame to do that. One of the goals that we had today was to let you all know that our stormwater study through Blueprint is slowing down the process to some degree for FAMU Way. So that is one thing, but again, it's allowing us to look at other opportunities that we wouldn't have had sooner. The second question, I think, was regards to the number of properties that would be impacted. Gary, why don't you go to the slide that shows in this particular part area.
That one.
Okay, so this is the amount of properties that we've impacted up to this point. Looks like 22 parcels total. We've had a very good success on acquiring those properties and moving through the process. So if you go to the other one, Gary, if FAMU Way is realigned in this area, we anticipate impacting about 55 parcels in this area.
This is on the north or the south?
This is on the south side of the CSX. Gary, show the where the railroad is. There you go.
Are those residential or commercial?
They're mostly residential. On the south side, we have some commercial on the north side where the pond is located.
What do you mean by affected?
You'd have to buy,
they would be impacted. That is correct. In order to create the gateway that you see here, there would be properties that would have to be purchased.
But between the north option and the south option, do you have that analysis?
Well, if you follow the existing Gamble Street right-of-way, you'll have significantly less, but you may not have stormwater management facilities that affect redevelopment along FAMU Way or retrofit as well. So if that's the component that you all are asking for, is to provide redevelopment options along FAMU Way, ponds like this is going to be essential to getting that in place.
Got it. And then my third question was going to be on the point of how many square feet are we taking up, from one side of the road to the other to include all of the amenities, not just the road, but the amenities that are planned. What do you all standard take in? And my point is, the point I want to get to on it is, I think Florida A&M University's master plan used to extend toward Lake Bradford. Mm-hmm. And it would be, my request, and we don't have to do this now because it's not worked up, that we would consider making the potential ownership of any land that's unused, given the university first right of refusal at that, given that the university master plan contemplates the growth of the university going toward Lake Bradford. something to consider. And again, if you were getting 90, I don't know, but I know at certain points on Capitol Circle, I think we were taking 90 or 120 feet across and maybe using 40 or 60 of them. So do you have a standard length that you go across, or not?
The standard width?
Well, the phase 2 for the FAMU Way was, I don't think there's any parking, so it would just be the 2 lanes and a median. And the trail is right adjacent. There's not a big swath of the trail either. It's
80
relatively
feet,
small.
Gary? Okay.
I would say 60 to 80, yeah.
Let me just kind of give you a feel for how we do the acquisition piece. Typically, we only acquire what we need for the right-of-way. However, if there's an occasion where what we need for the right-of-way is half of the parcel or almost the entire parcel, we'll purchase the entire parcel. So we've been very successful with that approach. So there's going to be pieces all along that are kind of jagged edges, if you would, of the right-of-way that would be unneeded or not necessary for the city to own at that point in time, unless there's a utility need or something like that. So we have that situation along the entire corridor, but to buy additional right-of-way beyond what we need, we just haven't done that along this corridor.
Yeah, well, understand the suggestion. I'm not asking you to buy right-of-way we're not going to use or need, but I was familiar that you all took whole parcels in cases where it made more sense rather than bifurcating it. And so some of inventory or assessment of how much more property we have that we will not use that we may make available for the university to potentially purchase.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Representative, I'm sorry, Mayor Gillum.
You're representative. Turn commissioner.
Has touched on what my question was, because I know on that south side there are a significant number of residences and even some commercial businesses still in that area, and so I would be concerned how they will be impacted. Certainly, this is a game changer for that area. I think for the entire southern part of Tallahassee, but I want to be sensitive to how those residences that are there and that have been there for as long as I've been in Tallahassee will be impacted by this wane. And that they are, and if they are impacted, if they're able to be relocated, in a way that is sensitive to them and the fact that they have been in those areas for a long time.
Commissioner, we do have a program because we are so tied with the City of Tallahassee on this project. The City Commission and the IA has blessed, if you will, Blueprint acquiring all the properties for Blueprint's needs as well as the City of Tallahassee needs, and also allowing us to use the incentive program that we have through Blueprint, which has been a tremendous help for acquiring property through the corridor. And those folks who live out there, there is a relocation program available that we've utilized. So we'll be glad to communicate that with you.
And have they been communicated with already when this could potentially, or at least it's being considered?
The affected property owners, yes. Every time we go to these areas, we will send a team out to provide all the assistance they need to make them whole again and to find housing. So we have that on the very front end of any purchase properties.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Anything further on this item? Hearing none, we got a motion and second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Spring Hill Road property resolution.
Move the item.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Mayor Gillum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see us acquiring this small piece. My only question is how much more of it can we get? This is one of those uses that is at the gateway into our city. I know Blueprint at one point, and the conversation around reauthorization of Blueprint 2000 talked about sort of the gateway and Spring Hill Road as a gateway into the city. I'm believing that the rest of this is the state road prison or road jail.
That's it.
Oh, okay. Oh, you got it. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Camp.
The DOT owns the piece to the north of the subject parcel. They use it for their traffic signal operations and stuff. I'm not sure the status of whether they would desire to relocate those or not. Certainly, if they felt like it was important, we could at least have a conversation with them. But if you drive by there, you see a significant number of mast arms and control boxes.
Yeah.
Who owns the piece that we're purchasing?
Department of Environmental Protection.
And the owner is different to the north?
Yes, it's all state-owned TIF property. The custodian in this instance is the Department of Environmental Protection. To the north is the Department of Transportation.
Got it.
Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Capital Cascades Connector Bridge bid evaluation. Mr. Tedder.
Okay, Commissioners, I'm going to try to do this a little remote with the PowerPoint.
By the way, we have a citizen's speaker request form. We'll hear the presentation first, then hear from members of the public that wish to speak, and then we'll deliberate on the item.
Which item is that, Mr. Chairman?
That is
Number 757.
Thank you.
Commissioners, if you'll follow along with the PowerPoint presentation that we have, kind of give you some context and then move through various components of this project. To begin with, the Connector Bridge project is the area that we have identified in the purple color. Essentially, it connects the exit from Cascades Park to the Capitol Cascades Trail that's currently under construction to the left side of that. Again, that trail will be constructed and will be a part of what Gary just presented to you and be opened up no later than October of this year. One of the things that are really important about this trail system is the connectivity, and what I have provided in this slide is to very generically indicate where sidewalks are and location to the multi-use trail. If you see from those 2 points of connections, there's nothing east-west that connects those 2 points of trails that we have, and the only connection that we have to the sidewalk system is to the north, away from the mixed-use trail component. As we talk about filling in the gap and seeing how this component is important to completing the system that we have, what you see in blue are areas that have been completed or under construction. If you notice Leon High School to the north, the St. Mark's Trail is to the west side of that screen. There's only 2 segments that are left to be connected at this point to have this trail system to extend from Leon High School down to St. Mark's. And as we indicated in the last presentation, the gap on the left-hand side near Lake Alberta will be a part of our Segment 3 design once we begin understanding our stormwater solutions.
Hey, Wayne, next time you all do a presentation like this, can you use a pointer? Because we're not accustomed, as accustomed as you all are to.
Thank you.
And I'm like, where's Leon High School? Yeah.
Yeah, let me just do it from here. It's a lot easier. I can play with the cursor.
Okay.
So if you want to go back.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so this is the gap that we were talking about just recently with Segment 3 on our stormwater design. This is all under construction and funded. This is where the Connector Bridge is located. This is the Cascades Park exit. And then this is Leon High School.
Okay.
And this area here is the St. Mark's Trail. So the intent of this project is to connect Leon High School to the St. Mark's Trail. Okay, so in the previous bid, we had a number of components, and I'll kind of run through them very quickly. We've had an additional parking lot area that would be constructed. We had significant amount of landscape to be constructed. We had walkways that take you from the trail system down to Monroe Street. This is one. It was an ADA accessible route, as well as one on the other side of Monroe Street, and this being Monroe Street here, that would get you down from this trail system down to Monroe Street, which we felt is very important for the overall success of this project. Some other things included plaza area, seating area here, and again, where you see these different colors is an enhanced landscape system. This would be a stairwell that gets you into yet another parking area that people would be able to utilize the trail from this area as well. And again, this is the concept of the bridge. It has not changed since I believe your June meeting, after we had went out to the June of 2011 meeting, when before that we went out to the citizens of the community. We did a charrette, provided a number of options for what this bridge could mean for our community and how it could look. And basically this was the concept that the community said they liked for this area, and we brought that concept to you all for final approval to move forward with the design and permitting process. As you see, it's got the sails here that would also have solar panels along the top. It's a clean rail system, and it's a 12-foot wide trail throughout. Okay, so in July of last year, we had this project out for bid. We received 3 bids. If you see, the companies were all from out of town, and the lowest bid, responsive bidder, was $4.7 million. At that point in time, we had only allocated $4.5 million towards the project budget for this project. So the decision was made based on exceeding those costs. We were looking at opportunities to reduce the costs, bring something back to you that would be maybe a little bit more competitive for the local market for construction of this bridge. So we repackaged the project. We advertised it to include only the primary trail. That's the spine that connects Cascades Park to the Van Buren Trail system, a parking lot area, and then the pedestrian bridge with basic landscaping and hardscape amenities. So we kind of took off all the beautiful components, not the beautiful components, because it's still a beautiful bridge and the landscaping is beautiful, but we just simplified the design in a number of ways. And what we did was take all of those things that we took off and we put them as alternates for the bid. So we still got a price for those items that we separated out, so that once they came in, you could make that decision whether or not it was important for you to include it for the overall project scope. So we revised the bid, and we said that we would bring it back to you for this meeting for that discussion. One other thing that we thought was a pretty creative approach to this bid process is that the bridge was initially classified as a major, or the contractors were required to be pre-qualified for as a major bridge contractor. And if you notice, in the state of Florida, we have 21 contractors who meet that designation. What we realized was that in order to be receive a more competitive bid, we could go out and have this bridge reclassified as an intermediate bridge structure, which meant it would open up to 123 contractors throughout the state of Florida, 10 of which are located within a 2-hour radius of Tallahassee. So we thought that maybe it would reduce some of the cost for folks who are having to basically set up shop closer than farther away. And kind of walking through the alternatives that we have identified, we have alternative 1, it's kind of a seating plaza here. Alternative 2 is a sidewalk system that connects the trail system down to Monroe Street here. And then alternative 3 was to provide the full extent of the landscape as originally envisioned. That's sensitive. Okay, so on March 3rd, we received 2 bids, and actually one bid came in right at the last moment. So the competition that we expected to receive was just not there. The lowest responsive bidder that we have at this point submitted a bid of $5.3 million, with the 3 alternatives coming in at $94,000 to complete those 3 alternatives. The cost for those alternatives, and we might get to that in just a few minutes, but was about $48,000 for this plaza area, $9,000 to complete this sidewalk area, and then $36,000 to complete the enhanced landscape. And if you notice, the area is significantly larger in certain areas for the landscaping, and it's more intense. Even in the base bid, we feel like the landscaping's a great opportunity, or the base landscaping plan is going to still be a very complementary effort to the bridge. Just kind of going back real quick, staff does not feel that this really warrants the $48,000 for this plaza area. we do think that there's a lot of value for approving this alternative 2 that provides this sidewalk connection down to Monroe Street. And we really believe that the landscaping that we have, the revised landscaping plan, is a very good landscape plan for this project. So we're not recommending alternative 3 either. Okay, so what are the reasons for the bids coming in even higher than before? We've identified a couple of ideas. I guess no one knows until someone actually tells you on some of these items. But the contractors, what we do know that there have been a number of contractors who simply said, we're busy. We don't have the ability to come in and bid this project. That lack of competition, we think, drives up the cost of these projects. There's already been seen in projects an increase in materials and labor and this overall increase of project costs. And then one other thing that we feel very confident is that this bridge can be constructed in a shorter period of time than 12 months. And so when we put this bid back out to the public, we felt that reducing it to 9 months gave the contractor sufficient time to complete this bridge structure. So that might have been another reason, moving that time period a little quicker, you'd see the increase. Okay, so where are we in terms of dollars? The construction-based bid, if you see here, is a base of $5.3 million, $98,000. This does include alternatives 1, 2, and 3, in which we can separate those out. We've identified a 10% contingency. It's not saying that we would spend it, but if there are issues that we have to deal with as this project moves through the process, we would utilize those funds to fund those changes. Post-design services, always important between post-design services, CE&I. These are incredibly important pieces of control for our project that is necessary to move this project forward. The solar canopies is a cost that is separated out and will be completed by a contractor other than who would be selected for this bid. And then we have $105,000 for utility costs. So the total cost with the construction and with the management and the design work of this project is just over $7 million. And as indicated to you before, we had $4.5 million set aside for this project, and we included, which also includes $1.4 million of FDOT money that we've received at this point. So the shortfall that we have to complete this project is just over $2,700,000. Our recommendation to you is to fund this project with the funding sources identified in this last line here. The $2 million would come from unallocated funds, which we do have reserved for this project. If you recall, back when we went out to bid and during our budgeting process, we knew that just at that period of time, we were $1.8 million short of completing this project. We set that $1.8 million off to the side and did not allocate it to projects, just in the event that if bids did come back during this process and they were higher than anticipated, we would have a funding source without having to take dollars from a particular project. As it stands, we will need additional $621,000, and we've identified a funding source where funding is available. We've been setting funds aside for the remaining portions of Segment 3 and Segment 4. We have over $11 million in that funding account right now that we're setting money aside, so as when the design comes in, we'll be ready to go out to bid. So that is the second funding source for this project. And then the second recommendation is to authorize the IMC to award, negotiate, and execute a contract to the lowest responsive bidder to complete this project. Now, you all have had a number of comments from an individual from the public who raised safety concerns about this bridge, and I kind of want to address those too because it's very, very important and because it may have some impact on how you view or how you discuss awarding the contract today. When you go to the typical specifications that are in the DOT manual for bridge construction, pedestrian bridge construction, we are building a pedestrian bridge over a state highway system. Therefore, we are required to get a lease from them, an air rights easement, if you will, to build this structure above them. In other words, anything we do across Monroe Street has to be approved by Florida Department of Transportation. So here are your options from bare minimal design to what we have proposed. This is a caged-in design. And I'll give you an illustration of what that typically means. Is that. Now, are there different variations that can have different types of appearance? Absolutely. You can look at the illustration on the left. It can be done very tastefully, but then again, you're talking about substantial improvements to the design that you have. Another alternative, and this is a picture from a pedestrian bridge in Las Vegas, if you're wondering, where it allows you to go up to a certain height and kind of curve the rail over to kind of create this zone from anyone throwing anything from over the edge. And that somewhat is a fairly attractive response for this bridge. And then this one, while it doesn't quite show what this third alternative is to allow just a vertical. It's a little higher than what you see with the angled over. Just be a little bit taller, and it would have a solid fence from top to bottom. Now, to give you an idea of, are there pedestrian bridges around the country, around the world, that are done very similar to what we're doing? The answer is absolutely yes. Here are examples of pedestrian bridges that do not have full enclosures. Actually, the rail height for the one on the top left, very similar to ours. The height on this lower left, very similar to ours. And if you notice what's below them, you got a 6-lane roadway here. You have, looks like an 8-lane roadway here. You have another type of facility here. It's not fully enclosed, has a handrail. This one is a little different. This kind of extends kind of outward from that, and there's a net, if you will, that extends significantly higher than the walkway. Oops. So those are the, I think we're, that's it. That's it. I thought I had one more. Sorry about that. Okay. So, Commissioners, as it stands, I don't know if you have any other questions regarding, in particular, the cost or the design, but one thing I will add to you, during the break of when we awarded or had the initial bids, we have the ability to do some design modifications to this bridge to extend something up vertical like this or this. So if there is ever an issue with design, with safety issues, this is an alternative that we can add to the existing bridge structure, something very similar to this, at least dimensionally. We also have, I'm sorry, I need to get it.
Can I ask, is the one you've got now is 42 inches high, is that right? That's the, which looks like about as high as the podium, maybe?
42 inches high.
42, about like that.
And the reason it's a little higher is because we have bicyclists along this corridor, so it's not just a handrail for pedestrians. You have bicyclists that are up a little higher.
I mean, is there any reason it's 42 inches as opposed to 48 inches or 51 inches? Or, I mean, how did you land on 42?
Well, I'd be glad to let the designer answer those questions for you.
Hi, I'm Linda Figg. That is a standard mandated height by Florida DOT for when you have bicycles.
Okay.
So,
our federal transportation guy in our CRTPA just said his concern was people throwing things over the rail onto the traffic below. That was it. And I just wondered if that's considered that.
well, this is a fairly short crossing, and you have a lot of topography changes on each end, which is a lot of significant earthwork that they're doing for the park. So today, someone could stand on the bluff and throw something into the traffic if they wanted to. Interestingly, we had this whole discussion right at the very beginning of the design criteria to determine what would be allowed, and it was signed off on to do the railing that we have in the design. There are other sidewalks even here locally that go over major highways that don't have the fencing. At Monroe Street, going across the interstate. There is a sidewalk that goes right next to the interstate, and there isn't a tall fencing for that.
Meridian Road, I-10 interchange.
They're everywhere, so.
They're all over the place.
Everywhere.
Okay, before we get into questions, does that conclude yours, Mr. Tedder?
I have two other points to make. While we were going through the variance process with DOT to get the railings that we have as part of this concept, we also indicated that we would have cameras on either side. So if you are on there and you've done something you shouldn't, you're going to be caught, no doubt about it. Now, does it stop it? No, but I think it would certainly deter it if folks know that they are going to be on candid camera. The second thing is at nighttime, the lights will shut down, if you will, has the ability to shut down, but if you pass by a certain point, they will turn back on. So not only does it save energy at nighttime, it also provides safe passage and folks to see if someone's on the bridge as they're traveling underneath it. So those are the other safety components we've added.
Thank you, Mr. Tedder. We'll go now to public comment. We have Antonio M. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, if you would give your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This will be very brief. My name is Antonio M. Garcia. I'm with the firm Garcia Bridge Engineers, which Mr. Tedder referred to a public individual that was raising some questions, and I guess that's my partner, who happens to be the one that wrote the article that was in the paper this morning. The concern that we were trying to bring to the community were primarily the cost of the structure. In no way, and I want to be very clear, first of all, is this being recorded?
Yes.
Okay, good. In no way am I implying or indicating or in any way whatsoever implying that the design was faulty or wrong or whatever. It is, we believe, since they're going to be signing and sealing these drawings, that their engineers did a good job in designing the bridge, and therefore it meets all the requirements of the FDOT. It is safe. It is within the requirements of the design criteria that we use, the AASHTO criteria, and therefore it is a valid solution to the problem. So we're not saying that. What we are trying to make someone clear that we believe that the cost is kind of excessive, and the information that we presented to the newspaper and to several people here on the commission, are indications from or numbers that come from the Florida Department of Transportation that in the state of Florida, on a normal basis, on a normal situation, which again, this may not be a normal situation, but normally bridges come in at a cost of $130 per square foot. The original number that was given at one of the early meetings of the committees, I think it was one of the public hearings, was that the bridge itself was going to cost $1.5 million. Later on, the number was increased to $2.5 million. Even at $2.5 million, if that were the cost of just the bridge, we thought it was the entire project, but I think in the newspaper article, it was clarified that the $2.5 million represented the cost of the bridge. That would make this bridge $1,300 per square foot. Now, to bring that into comparison, the Skyway Bridge, which I think some of you may have seen crossing the entrance to Tampa Bay, at that time in the 1980s came in at about $140 a square foot. Taking into account 30 years and a 5% increase in money, for instance, bringing it up to local costs today, it would be somewhere in the order of $500 to $600 a square foot. So you see that this bridge is probably twice that. Many other bridges that are built in this area, pedestrian bridges, are obviously a lot cheaper than this. So that was one of the things that we wanted to point out. Now, it may be a good investment. I'm not saying that it is or isn't, and it may be something that the commissioners want. And since there was a public hearing, it may be something that the public would be willing to accept. We're just saying that maybe you should give it a little bit more thought. Changing
If you could wrap up, if you could. Your time's expired, but please
I'm sorry.
continue. Just wrap up.
the changing the classification. A road by any other name is still a road. So if you change it from major to intermediate, it doesn't matter. It's still a Category 2 bridge under this FDOT requirements. It requires post-tensioning, which is a very expensive item, and it's really not necessary. The overpass over I-75, if some of you travel I-75 south of Orlando, you'll see a pedestrian bridge that crosses the I-75. It's actually a horse. It's for horses and for people, and it has fencing, but they use foliage to accomplish that fact. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address this item? Hearing none, I got Commissioner Deloge and Proctor.
Mr. Garcia, thanks for coming out. I wish your partner's emails to at least me were a little less overt. They were, I think, a little offensive, frankly, with some of the allegations they made. I think the fence issue, I think Wayne has done a nice job of outlining how we've gotten to where we are with that today. I think there's been a lot of work done with the bid process to try and make sure that we get a product everybody can be proud of. I'm ready to move forward on this, and I'll make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation and move forward.
Second.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I at one of our previous meetings had asked staff to halt the project until we actually achieve an intermediate criteria instead of a major structure, which would have allowed for local contractors to bid it on the project. I'm not certain if all of those things have been achieved, but one of my interests was in learning that a factor that made the cost so enormous was that this was a major structure classification, which meant that only a teaspoon full of amount of persons were qualified to build a major structure, which meant that it would go sky high, the cost, because of the major structure classification. Speaking of bridges, I've paid a lot of attention to one bridge this weekend, the Edmund Pettus. And I don't know what the cost of Pettus Bridge was in Selma, but I walked around Cascade Park after leaving the movie Selma for the third time last night, and I contemplated the value and how much significant this cost for this project would be. And we were told, and this has been presented to us as a $2.7 million shortfall, but to me it's more like a $3 million increase. And that variation in play on words, well, different people hear different things, but the project is more than double the cost of which originally we were told. And it's almost like, is this the same thing? I'm not satisfied with the accounting for the increase. And then I've spoken with Wayne, and he's well aware of my position, but I've not shared it with the public and why I won't support this on the cost basis. And when you have, for instance, in our community, citizens who are given pedestrian citations for walking in the street in areas in which they have no sidewalk, it's difficult for me to spend $7 million for a bridge across the air when there's not enough sidewalk on the ground. And just 2 weeks ago, my parents moved on North Ridge Road in 1961, and for 54 years, the Proctors, the Pies, the Austins, Mrs. Johnson have paid for 50 years money for sidewalk. And the city began to build the sidewalk from Spring Sachs down to stopped at Creek Road. And it goes around North Ridge, around the bend, and picks up in the middle of nowhere on Ridge Road. And I don't know if the cost, what happened, but we've been paying, my parents have paid for 54 years. They don't have a sidewalk. heavy pedestrian. I'm just unable. This is way beyond my experience. I shared with Wayne that I walked the railroad track across that bridge as a kid going to Myers Park, and that was the overpath. And I would be well satisfied, if we didn't even have this piece, but $7 million to build sidewalk across the air when we have projects languishing in my district and citizens in my district who are being given criminal citations for walking in streets where there are no roads. I couldn't justify this to the people who hired me. So given my boss's expectations of me and knowing their demands of me, I wouldn't be able to articulate $7 million for a sidewalk in the air when people in my community lack sidewalks on the ground for which they use. So it's a lovely project. I walked it last night again. Beautiful project and all of that. But I can't reconcile its cost to immediate needs that have been long existent in District 1. So I'm very, very pleased to share and offer to the body why I can't ride with you all the way across the bridge. I'm going to get off the bridge and not go across the other side. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion on the motion. I've got Commissioner Dozier followed by Richardson.
Thank you. I will go quick. I do thank you, Wayne, others for clarifying kind of the whole scope of this project. I have one question, but I think we come back to this oftentimes, and we do the public a disservice when we think about, all these different pots of money and programs we've got being accessible for anything we want to do. We have a specific scope with some of these dollars, and we can't accomplish everything with blueprint dollars. So I think that's the first thing. Second thing, I am continually impressed by the diversity at Cascades Park. This is truly our central park. And I think this is the potential to be an incredible gateway to FAMU, to South Monroe, connecting with Cascades' other segments, and everything that President Mangum wants to do, expanding the campus towards South Monroe. I think this is, we say it all the time, but a game changer for the community. So it is a very high dollar project, and we don't do these things often. But I think that this one is worth it. We've thought about it a lot. I will say the one concern I had after going through here, and Wayne, I had to chuckle at y'all's speculation over why the bid from the lowest bidder increased $600,000 when we were trying to, less than a year, and when we were trying to get it reduced. I agree. We're seeing, thank goodness, the market coming back. So cost of products and labor can be higher. But it put me in the position kind of on the seesaw on this. On one side, I wanted to ask for justification, line by line justification. What products did go up in the last few months or something like that? It might not be something that we can do, but I would encourage that conversation to happen because that's a pretty substantial jump when we were trying to work through these numbers and reduce the cost by pulling out the additional items. But the other side was we tried to do something here to increase the number of bids. And I, as you said, we changed the classification, things like that, and we ended up with one less bid. So I think we either have to move forward now or not at all because costs are going to continue to go up in the future. So while I would love to know more about that $600,000, very much love to know more, I think we got to move forward if we're going to do this at all.
Commissioner Richardson.
Let me just very quickly address the information. So unless we award the bid, that information will not be available as there is public records protection law. So if the money is made available today, we can certainly provide you a status report on where things changed.
That'd be fantastic. And I do understand the process. I apologize. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first of all want to say that I respect Commissioner Proctor's point of view. He raises some very legitimate points. But I think that this is a signature project for the city of Tallahassee. I think it will complement what we've done at Cascades Park, what will happen when FAMU Way is extended to South Monroe. And Wayne, I was struck by a comment that you made in the article this past weekend that I hadn't thought of it that way, but it is a gateway to the South Side. And so we will have an opportunity, but as a gateway, particularly a signature project like this, we can't send people under that overpass and then they see what they see today. So we're going to have an opportunity when we start talking about priority of projects for Blueprint to address the South Monroe, South Adams Street corridor. And there are projects and funding that have been approved by the voters for those projects. And so once we get this bridge in place, we've got to make sure that it is in fact a gateway and that what comes after that gateway represents what we've done to create that gateway and everything leading up to that. So I hope we keep that in mind as we have that discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Ritson. Commissioner Lindley, followed by Mayor Gillum.
Yeah, one thing that I think is really important is the whole tourism and visitor piece of this at the Cascades Trail, connecting us to the St. Mark's Trail and all. I think it's very important in the larger scheme of what we're trying to do in this community. And I just hate to see the cyclists have to stop and try to cross 6 lanes of Monroe Street traffic, get back on their bikes and haul over. So, I mean, I just think it's part of a bigger picture. So it's very important. And I appreciate, all the work everybody's done on this. I'm ready to move on it.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. Mayor Gillum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to align myself with the comments around the need for sidewalks and clearly understand the line of demarcation of what funds can go for what purpose. The Blueprint reauthorization, the city did identify as its number one priority. I think the first $50 million, maybe, it may not be that, $50 million for sidewalks, and would encourage Commissioner Proctor to pursue the same, because I think there are large swaths of our community that is left untouched. But with regard to this project, Linda Figg and her team have done a outstanding job, I think, in designing what will be an iconic bridge for Tallahassee. Quite literally a bridge in Tallahassee. Someone mentioned earlier the amount of diversity that happens in that park. It really is where Tallahassee comes to meet itself. Really, this community, Tallahassee, Leon County. I was there this weekend trying to quiet our babies, and we walked 2 miles around that thing, and it worked like a charm. So the Cascades Park is also a baby whisperer for those who are wondering. I want to applaud the staff also for attempting to get local folks. And I know we can't answer this question today, but I would be curious to know why we didn't get why we didn't get any participation from our local folks. We hear oftentimes our local money going to other people in other places. So why, when we have the opportunity to participate locally, that didn't show up? I just can't wait for us to get construction underway so that we can get this bridge open. I think the community is ready for it. We're ready for it. So, with all deliberate speed, hopefully after today's vote, we can get underway and get this project going and it opened.
Thank you, Mayor Gillum. Commissioner Proctor?
Would it have been illegal if Leon County had been allowed to be the contractor of this project? Would that have been legal or illegal? Or
Tony, do you have anyone who can build a bridge?
Figuratively. Not literally.
Tony's staff does not have the qualifications to build a bridge.
I mean, but to have been the contractor for it, was the county barred from participating in finding and answering the questions and local participation? Couldn't we have done that?
Well, certainly the county's capital budget can do the bridge as well as sidewalks as well. So if you wish to augment this sidewalk list or any pedestrian stuff, you can do it directly out of the county capital budget, certainly. I mean, you may not have the ability to build it yourself, but you certainly could fund it.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. The point is, would the county have been qualified to have been a bidder on this particular project? I'm curious because for some reason or other, it seems that when the city or county, our public works people and our staff can do things a lot more cost effective than when we go strict private sector. I don't know why it gets to be over double the amount, and it feels like from what initially we were told, from a 1.5, 2.5, and now we're some numbers 7.2 up on the screen. It feels like we're going to be sliding all the way to the cleaners, and we probably, at the rate in which this increase is going, we'll probably end up around $11 million on this bridge. I see which way it's going, up, and away. I was curious. Secondly, I'm curious about is there an MBE component in this project? And will there be minority participation, Wayne, and how is that addressed? Or is it like DOT, it's just a dream, but nothing really enforces it?
Commissioners, you see on the next to the bottom line, we accepted $1.4 million from DOT. When we accept those dollars from state and federal government, we are subject to their procurement policies. They have a goal for DBE participation. It's different than MBE. It's very similar but different. The bids are being evaluated for that criteria. I honestly can't tell you what the bidders had at this point as far as their goal and participation.
I can clarify. The contractor did provide meeting the DOT goal. It's almost 10% DBE participation.
Thank you, Charles.
Now, what does the D stand for? DB?
Disadvantaged.
Okay, thank you.
All right, further discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Passes everyone to Commissioner Proctor.
Nice.
Okay, we are now on Sanco Inc. settlement agreement. Mr. Tett.
Commissioners, if you all recall, during the construction of Cascades Park, we encountered a sinkhole that opened up in the major stormwater management facility in the park. What that did was require us to stop the developer from doing construction in that portion of the park for nearly 9 months as we went and engineered a solution and went out and procured the cost to complete that work. At the end of the project, the contractor claimed impacts for delays of that. Blueprint absolutely agrees that there were impacts to that developer, the contractor at the time. The request from Sanco came in at over $488,000. Through negotiating efforts through staff and with the contractor, we came in with a recommended agreement of $348,000.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Are there any citizens to be heard today? Are there any citizens to be heard? Hearing none, are there items from members of the committee? Thank you, members, for a great meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before you go, April 1st, we're looking at the special meeting to discuss Magnolia Drive sidewalks and the preliminary 2020 priorities.
We got that invitation on Friday, didn't we?
Yep. Yes, it is.
A firefighter. For more information about becoming a firefighter, visit talgov.com or call 850-606-6600.